The Consolations of Philosophy. It sounds gentle, doesn't it? Like a warm blanket for a bad day. But as we'll see in this explainer, The Consolations of Philosophy is actually not gentle at all. Written by Alain de Botton, The Consolations of Philosophy acts more like a cold clinical tool. It cuts right into our private habit of bad consolation. What Alain de Botton really asks in The Consolations of Philosophy is a pretty harsh truth. Why does our pain consistently get such terrible advice?
You know, it's so easy to think that the ache means your life has to change immediately. We just assume pain requires an instant fix. But this book suggests the ache might actually just need a better question first. What this book offers isn't some cheerful slogan or blind optimism. It offers a strict diagnosis of the architecture of self.
And this habit, it's incredibly old. We all do it, right? You feel disliked, so you immediately chase approval. You feel poor, so you chase more. You feel blocked, so you curse the world. Feel small, you hide. The mechanism here is dangerously sharp. Pain essentially narrows our attention until the absolute wrong answer feels incredibly urgent. And that is exactly how a temporary mood suddenly becomes a dangerous command.
I want you to just hold this question open in your mind as we go through this book. What if comfort has literally been using your fear as a steering wheel? What if your next move isn't actually brave, just because it was a fast reaction to discomfort? The goal here isn't about finding the motivation to radically change your life today. It's about reframing the moment. It's about simply naming the wound without blindly obeying it.
Section 1, Unpopularity is not proof. We're going to begin with the wound of social rejection, looking directly at Socrates standing before the crowds of ancient Athens. The crowd had the power, but he had the reasons. And honestly, that situation was just as messy and terrifying back then as a public rejection is for any of us today.
Which brings us to a deeply held, very defensible belief: if people reject me, I should probably doubt myself. Now, I want to voice this belief with genuine respect, because it is not weak. It keeps jobs safe, it keeps families calm, it keeps us from becoming totally reckless, and it protects us from the vanity of thinking that we alone see things clearly.
I really wish this belief weren't true, but we have to collapse it using the book's logic. Because look at where it inevitably leads us. If the crowd becomes your compass, truth just becomes weather. Every face becomes a forecast. Every silence becomes a verdict on your worth. You stop thinking for yourself and you literally just start polling the room. And the absolute worst part, you falsely call that fear humility. So we're left with two obvious paths when we face the crowd: absolute submission to their approval, or a kind of private, isolated stubbornness. Both of these carry real gravity, and honestly, neither is an obvious winner. The crowd might actually be right, or your stubborn fear might be right, but neither of them gets to sit in the judge's chair automatically. Here is what this book actually offers: the true third path: Socratic examination. It's testing whether a claim survives a clear, direct question. The answer isn't just trust yourself, and it's certainly not just ignore them. This is the intellectual hygiene Socrates used under immense pressure, right before being condemned to death in 399 BC. Beliefs simply must stand trial. So the next time you feel judged, apply this Socratic pressure test. Ask yourself, what evidence am I inventing right now simply because I want safety? You have to ruthlessly separate the actual hard evidence of your failure from your own manufactured fear, because a bad belief can feel very, very responsive in the moment.
Section 2, Desire speaks in disguises. Shifting our focus to Epicurus. Now, the false belief here usually goes something like, if I learn philosophy, I'll just feel less. But we have to counter this notion that philosophy numbs our pain. In reality, it doesn't numb a thing. What it actually does is give our deepest desires a much more accurate grammar.
Notice how desire speaks in disguises. A surface request for, say, an expensive car is so often just a misread, confused search for a deeper psychological need, like freedom. A luxury villa might literally just be a cry for companionship. Loud applause is often a heavily masked search for inner peace. The error isn't in wanting things. The error is trusting the very first translation of your desire.
Which brings us to this famous Epicurus quote from the book: pleasure is the beginning and the goal of a happy life. Epicurus is exercising a kind of brutal kindness here. He doesn't shame your desire. He edits it. He defines pleasure simply as freedom from needless distress.
So, what are his actual ingredients for happiness?
true friendship, genuine freedom, and an analyzed life. And it's vital to emphasize here that this book isn't anti-money or anti-success at all. It is strictly anti-confusion. It's entirely about recognizing what actually satisfies the ache.
Think of it like architecture. A life is not saved by just decorating the facade. It's saved by finding the load-bearing arch. Or think of cooking. A bitter stock isn't thrown away. It's reduced down until it tells the absolute truth. Both of those metaphors point to the exact same thing inside of us. We have to extract a wound's true structure instead of just buying things to blindly decorate it.
Interrogate your own desires tonight. Ask yourself, what pain would still remain even after the wish came true? If loneliness is still sitting there after you buy the object, or if fear is still lingering after you get that big promotion, then the purchase was merely a mask. Philosophy just slows down the sale and forces you to confront the real need. Section 3, Difficulty is Raw Material. Introducing Nietzsche. We are stripping away the last easy escape here. It is incredibly common to assume that a difficult path is automatically the wrong path, but Nietzsche challenges that reflex head-on. I want you to feel the weight of this dilemma. On one hand, we have this massive modern urge to remove all difficulty with comfort, to just erase all pain immediately. But on the other hand, we have the equally dangerous trap of romanticizing hardship, worshiping suffering as if it's holy and automatically makes you a better, deeper person. Both of these are traps.
Here is the book's strict resolution. The third path asks a different question. What can this pain be made to serve? Pain is quite literally just raw material. That material has to be transmuted into strength or craft without ever letting it become your entire identity. It demands judgment, and it asks whether the wound can actually become work.
Because suffering acts as vital information. Envy can become study. Shame can become honesty. Loss can become a much clearer measure of love. Now, not all suffering ennobles you. Some of it just crushes you, plain and simple. But a bruise is not a teacher until someone actually learns how to read it. 3,451. That is the height, in meters, of Piz Corvatsch, a mountain from the Nietzsche chapter in this book. It takes at least 5 hours to climb. This mountain is not some cheesy motivational poster. The climb matters precisely because the body paid a severe cost to get there. The difficulty wasn't assigned to turn around and stop. It was the required price of clarity. Section 4. The Practiced Consolation. To summarize, this book promises better company inside your pain. It invokes Seneca for your frustration, Montaigne for your deep feelings of inadequacy, and Schopenhauer for your heartbreak. And here's the secret. None of them flatter you. That is exactly why they actually help. And so we arrive at a central paradox. Consolation is disciplined contact with what hurts. True consolation is not a soft lie saying, "You are fine, everything is going to be okay." It is a cold, kind command to look again, but this time with better diagnostic tools. True wisdom only starts when comfort finally stops lying to you. Let's lay this practice out directly to wrap up. 1. Name the ache without obeying it. 2. Cross-examine it for the truth. 3. Make one clean next act. You must make the ache answer to you before it drives your decisions. Refuse the part of your brain that sells panic and instead make one smaller move from a clearer reading. Continue the internal transformation. What ache deserves a better diagnosis tonight?